So I was brainstorming the intro for this video, just listing out the ways that I think pan sauces change your life, and when I got to washes your pan for you, I knew that was it. If that alone is not enough to make you want to incorporate pan sauces into your life, you've got high standards, I guess. But anyway, in today's video, we're first going to cover the pan sauce blueprint, including the 5 key components that make them up, before I walk through 2 different pan sauces. One is a red wine based sauce that goes over a steak, and the second one is a chicken based one that goes over my current favorite healthy meal, probably the best chicken breast you can make in 15 minutes. Also, a big thank you to Made In for sponsoring today's video, but first let's answer, what exactly makes up a pan sauce? In its simplest form, a pan sauce is made by first searing some kind of meat or vegetable in a pan. This searing typically leaves behind a mix of fat drippings and some brown protein bits that are bit stuck to the pan. This is known as the fond, and it has a ton of flavor because it's the same browning that's on the exterior of whatever we just got done searing. To make that into a pan sauce, you just keep the pan on the heat and add any liquid. I'm legit using water here. And as it reduces, this will mix up the leftover fat, fond, and water, providing you with a pan sauce in its simplest form. So you may be thinking, this is a pretty trash pan sauce, and yeah, I would tend to agree, but if you actually add some butter to this and a little bit of salt, it turns into something quite good. But I wanted to start here with the pan sauce in its simplest form because it really showcases the concept of what we're trying to do. When we add that liquid into the pan, it lifts off the fond and mixed with those fat drippings too, and it captures that flavor into our sauce, which we can then apply to meats or vegetables. But now that we have the simplest form out of the way, we are ready to learn about the pan sauce blueprint, which has 5 key components. A typical pan sauce is going to have 4 elements and a 5th one that is optional depending on how you make it. So first up we have the fond, then the liquid, the fat, the flavor additions, and the thickeners. So as I mentioned, the fond on the pan could be from steak, chicken, pork, lamb, or vegetables even. The liquid could be plain water, but commonly used items are stocks, red or white wine, water, milk, cream, or even coffee. I've never had red-eye gravy with ham, but it's apparently a thing. The fat is most commonly butter, used for its richness, and it's great for emulsifying with the liquid, but cream or other fats could be used too. Now, the flavor additions are split into sauteed aromatics added before the liquid and flavor finishers added after the liquid, such as fresh herbs, lemon juice, or a variety of sauces like soy sauce, gochujang, or Dijon mustard. Then lastly, we have the thickeners, which are things like flour, cornstarch, or gelatin, and are used to dial in the consistency of the sauce. Everyone's going to have their own thickness preferences, but a slightly viscous sauce definitely provides a luxurious meal. So keep these 5 components in mind as we walk through the pan sauces. And first up, we have this delicious and classic red wine pan sauce that pairs perfectly with a steak. To start, set a pan over medium-high heat with a little drizzle of oil. Once that's hot, add your steak of choice and just sear it to your desired doneness. So while the steak is cooking, here are my pan sauce components. For the liquid, I have a red wine and some chicken stock. For the fat, our good friend butter. For the flavor additions, I have some minced shallot, minced parsley, and black pepper. And then optionally, that thickener, I do have some cornstarch slurry, which I may or may not use. So back at the pan, that steak is nice and seared off, and just pull it off and let it rest for about 5 minutes, during which we'll clean our pan or make our pan sauce. So turn the heat to medium and then toss in the minced shallot to toast while stirring that for just about 30 seconds, and then go ahead and add in 100 milliliters or about a half cup of red wine. Using a spatula, scrub that pan and the fond should release right off, and now we're going to reduce this wine until it's about a half or a third and it leaves a nice trail behind, 1 to 2 minutes. So while we're waiting for whatever's happening on screen right now, let me tell you about the sponsor of today's video, Made In, who also made this carbon steel frying pan that you're gonna see all throughout the video. So Made In just makes, in my opinion, the best high quality professional grade kitchen equipment for home cooks and professionals alike. And specifically, this carbon steel pan is one of my favorites. It's a great all-around pan. You can use it for searing steaks, meats, anything like that. But once you get it well seasoned, it actually acts like a non-stick pan too, so it's great for super delicate things as well. And then to clean this, it's super easy. Like after the pan sauce, all I did was run it under the water, give it like one little wipe with a sponge, and then it was ready, dried it off. And then if it looks a little bit dry, sometimes I'll add like a dot of oil and just kind of rub that into the surface. But other than that, that's it. It's super easy to use. It's lightweight. One of my favorite pans to use in the kitchen. So if you want to pick up this specific pan or anything that Made In offers, my viewers are getting 15% off using my code down below. So check out the description. Yeah, but thank you again, Made In, for sponsoring this video.
Now back at the pan, you can see that wine has reduced way down. So next pour in 100 milliliters or about a half cup of chicken stock, and we're going to let this reduce down as well. Since I'm using a homemade chicken stock, it does have a lot of gelatin in it compared to a store-bought version and should thicken up and give me the viscosity that I want, but I do have these cornstarch slurry ready if I do want to dial in my consistency. So after the wine has been in there, lastly I'm going to drop in 30 grams or 2 tablespoons of butter and slowly work around and emulsify that into the wine liquid, which is going to make the sauce a bit more creamy and round out those edges. At this point, I do want my sauce to be a little bit thicker, so I do go ahead and add a splash of that cornstarch slurry in there and just dial in the consistency to what I prefer, and I do want it to kind of coat the back of the spoon. Once it's at the desired thickness, go ahead and add the flavor finishers, which for me, this was just some fresh minced parsley and a bunch of black pepper before adding that to the steak and slathering it with our sauce.
So as simple as pan sauces are, my number one gripe with them is that they tend to have a lot of fat. At least most recipes do. This one alone has a couple tablespoons of butter, so of course it's going to taste pretty good. But I think really once you understand how to make them, you can customize them to your needs. And for me, I like using them on healthier foods, which is exactly what you'll see in the grilled chicken we're about to make.
To start, get out a chicken breast and flip it over. Add cross cuts to the breast, which will help thin it out and also create some cool little edges for us to get some texture and browning on the chicken. Next, add salt to both sides, and typically I'll let this dry brine in the fridge for a couple of hours or overnight if I remember to. When you are ready to cook though, set a pan over medium-high heat and add some oil, enough to coat the pan in a thin layer. Once that's hot, slide the chicken in and really sear it well on both sides so we get some deep browning. I'm shooting to cook this until the internal temperature reaches around 150 to 155 degrees at the thickest point. Then I pull it off and set it aside while we do the pan sauce. Again, remember those 5 components from earlier. First, I'm going to toss in a couple cloves of minced garlic and also some minced rosemary and just toast that all together for about 30 seconds. Next, pour in about 200 milliliters of stock, which again, this is a homemade chicken stock, so it does have a lot of gelatin, and I'm going to bring this up to a simmer and reduce it way down. Again, I have my cornstarch slurry ready if I needed to dial in that consistency and thickness. And then finally, for the flavor additions, I'm just going to hit this one with some lemon juice for brightness and a bunch of fresh cracked black pepper. Then all we have to do is slice up that beautifully browned chicken, put it on our plate, add it with some roasted potatoes and asparagus, and finally spread that sauce over the top.
Alright everybody, so hopefully this video was a great introduction to pan sauces for you. Again, millions of ways to make them with whatever ingredients you want, but incorporating them is super easy because you typically are waiting for your meat to rest a bit anyway, and that is just the right amount of time to make a pan sauce or just a way to wash your pan like we mentioned. So I'm going to dive into this plate. Both of these recipes will be up on my website. Highly recommend giving this chicken a shot. It's amazing. But that's going to wrap it up for me in this one. I'll catch y'all in the next one. Peace, y'all.
That is good. Bro, that's a winner of a dinner right there.
Isn't it?
So simple, too. It's like a 20-minute dinner right there.
Yeah, faster.